in France.
Yeah, and I think it's, we're talking about transduction and sort of rewriting of a self or space or work. And I feel actually very similar to you in one aspect, even though it's on a completely different axis, which is that I sort of gave up doing electronic music or acousmatic music years ago, for no particular reason. It wasn't a sort of strong dislike or anything, but I was just more interested in acoustic chamber music. But in thinking about that time and the spaces that you're describing, I was writing a period where I was becoming increasingly interested in spatialization, distribution of sound around the space, and the idea of gallery installation. Easier to do with speakers than caging 3 performers and making them be here for an entire month. But that would work too.
That's also a show.
And so at the end of this, in some ways, I've rediscovered a lot of things that I sort of put away in my practice, sort of hadn't really engaged with. Both in the sense of this work, we've got all sorts of plans for the acoustic version is going to be performed at the Lincoln Center in January of next year. And I'm thinking about ways we can do more elaborate installations, more speakers, and more ways of sort of activating the space. And so I feel like that this process has, in some ways, we'll see if it produces good work or not, but it has sort of altered my process, and it's altered yours. Though, in a funny way, sort of away from live performance and more towards these long-term, sort of technologically mediated installations and sort of long-term replacement of pieces. Which is great, and exactly as you're saying, I don't think I would have gotten there in the same way if we hadn't been having the kind of directions and experiences that we were there in this funny time, in this chance meeting.
Place in the studio, you walked by my studio windows every morning with this coffee. You would go by this, see what I'm doing, by this, see what I've done. You go up to his place. Every day was the same thing. How you doing? It's kind of like the cartoon, the sheepdog and the coyote would go punch morning off that whole thing. And then finally you went through one day and then it's seen all this.
It also helped that I had coffee like about every 4 minutes. So I held down.
The other kind of aspect of change we keep hinting at it's funny seeing the situation with the sound when it kicks on here a little bit. And the open windows, I keep thinking about that, but hearing them, a little pitter patter, little feet, my wife back there, we had just learned that we were pregnant when we went there, so we had this kind of lens of change coming down the road. When I went there, well, she went with me. She was with me, yeah. So we knew this was coming, and it kind of changed things. And we started Skyping every morning and talking about children and babies and what this would be. So that got kind of to be a subtext, as you can see, there's pink, which if anybody knows me, I had a tremendous aversion to pink, and now it's everywhere. So there's changing happening, and it was very interesting to have sort of this focus in this bracket and seeing it come down the road and how it kind of fed in. And it's kind of another difference. A lot of my previous work wasn't very personal, and then this sort of kicked in that sort of personal side. But
by way you're talking about it, you imply that it's both randomness and opportunity, because chance means both of those things. And I've heard one kind of chance with that camera obscura that you mentioned, where you seize an opportunity that you didn't expect. A chance who knows how to call it. And you refer to other ones, the ones I think where you're talking about using your hands if things happen, and you call that chance. I think it might be better to call it something else. It's still coming through you, it's not rationally done.
Right.
So I'm just trying to ask you about your multiple meanings of chance, because there are so many ways you mention it, and so many different ways in which I think it can be categorized and understood.
I think the aleatoric chance was what we came up with.
It's tricky for me because in music, it does have very specific associations, but that also very carefully historically placed. That chance music was a particular kind of music which Cage was one of the great advocates and sort of progenitors. And again, sort of parallel path, there's also a tradition which is probably closer to what I operate under, called aleatoric music, which is just a Latinate way of saying chance. But they sort of use that to discriminate between pieces where there's a mathematically controlled chance process and aleatory, broadly speaking, sort of technical reasons, are in some ways any piece where there's a limit on the predictability of performance structures. Louis Foskey is probably the great first user of aleatory, where scores are constructed in certain ways where performers can't actually, this happens a lot of my music, can't actually align in time in a predictable way, because Rob is doing something and playing. I'm endeavoring to enter when I kind of think he's reached this particular point in the score, but will never align perfectly. So the scores are built in such a way that they're, especially in terms of temporal alignment, there's a degree of flexibility. And I think one of the reasons it's difficult for us to talk about it is that those are probably the two best terms that are out there, and for me, they're kind of already occupied with particular associations. I would always argue, I think there is a good term, which we've forgotten about, which is, if you look at the philosophy of Charles Saunders Peirce, he talks a lot about his notion of tychism, which is, he was pretty aggressively Heraclitean, sort of a Heraclitean flux, a way of talking about flux. And as is always the case, because Peirce was kind of crazy and stoned on cocaine a lot of the time, sometimes he's not the clearest in his writing. And William James summed it up, his sort of great buddy said, tychism is, I'll get this right, order from chance becoming, right? And it's these orders that reveal themselves through these varieties of processes, often organic processes. Peirce is talking about a lot of organic processes. And so I kind of like to think about tychism as the sort of broadest way of thinking about these things, especially since Peirce is really making an ontological argument. He's saying, this is the way the universe is organized. This is the way being happens. And at least in my work, which, like I said, uses a lot of these aleatoric elements, devices, really. One of the reasons I like them is not actually because they're novel, but it's because they reveal what's always happening anyway. In some ways, the traditions of musical notation are there to aid in the management of those procedures in a particular way. But they don't negate it. They don't make it go away. They just feel the essentially tychastic nature of certainly in group or collective aesthetic production. I'd probably argue kind of any aesthetic production. There's always going to be something like that happening. So if we had to pick a word, that's the word I would use, except nobody uses it anymore. So I don't know if it has any actual use value to use it, but if people have thoughts or suggestions, people will. Yeah, I think it's a lacuna in our discourses. We haven't really cultivated, I don't mean our discourse, I don't think we've really cultivated ways of talking about that, even though it's very essential.